Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the founder of Future Forward Sales and Petite to Queen, Lynn Whitbeck. How are you today, Lynn?
I am doing phenomenal. I'm so glad to be here with you, Stephen.
Oh, I'm loving the energy considering it's the morning for you. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. And I know we've had to reschedule this a couple of times. So like you said before, I'm glad we bared with it and we're here. And I'm looking forward to just tapping into some of your wisdom and
Well,
imparting the listeners.
well, trust me, sales and follow up is something I just know by the back of my hand and just comes naturally.
Exactly. So I knew you would understand. Listen, Lynn, before we sort of roll into this, let's just give the listeners and the viewers an overview of what you do and who you serve.
Absolutely. That would be great. So I'm Lynn Whitbeck. I am the founder and CEO of Future Forward Sales and Petite to Queen, and we provide sales and leadership training programs for you to achieve more faster. We primarily work with businesses. It's a B2B program, and it's our programs, and it's a live virtual, but live.
Live,
We're
virtual,
right there with
who
you the
knows now?
entire step of the way. All of our programs provide incredible results because people start seeing their performance tick up after the second session. And then the greatest thing is that, once they're done, they've got all the tools, they've got worksheets, workbooks that they can constantly go back to and use because we recommend that. So like when you're doing a presentation, you go back to your worksheet, think like a customer. So you're planning that presentation. Even when you have a template and you know that this is my presentation to sell XYZ solution, I'm going back to this because this is where we're at in the sales stage. This is what I've learned. And then how can I make sure I incorporate that into the presentation so I knock it out of the park and move that sale forward? So that's what we do.
Love
And
it.
I absolutely love what we do. And I love helping customers, the businesses and the salespeople, be able to serve their customers because every time we lift one another up, we have these incredible products, services, solutions that we can give to our customers and make their life better.
And that's what it's all about. It's
Yeah.
that classic saying is selling is serving. And I think you've sort of described that in a lovely manner. Let's rewind a little bit then. Let's go back in time. What made you what made you think or what made you start going, I really want to help businesses be able to sell more, but I guess it's actually more obviously connect with their customers and form better relationships.
Well, I actually sort of fell into sales
I feel
after
like
graduate
everyone does.
school.
Everyone falls into sales, don't they?
Yes. So after graduate school, I got my first sales position actually because I asked for it and I almost forced the issue. And I went into sales. I worked for a small business, about 50 employees at that time. I was their first outside salesperson because the founders were the salespeople. And started in March. And at the end of, that year, I had outsold one of the partners. And the next year, I outsold the other partner.
What a great
I
bit of
never looked
disruption
back
for
from
them.
there. But it was because it spoke to my core values
Mm.
of helping people. I mean, that's just who I am. And sales was a way for me to do that. Because if I could take something off their plate for my customers so that they never had to think about it again, they had complete confidence that I'm going to anticipate all the problems, I'm going to take care of things, and I'm only going to come to them with solutions. I'm never
Mm.
going to come to them with a problem, just dump it in their lap. I do all the heavy lifting. And by doing that, I made their world a little better. And that was amazing. That was amazing.
I can see that you light up when you say that. You're making people's world better. Is that what it's about for you? Do you love seeing that result and that transition?
Absolutely. It's everything that I do is focused around lifting others. It's like if we all do that and we all work together in that way, it's just, imagine how much more incredible the world could be
Yeah.
when we tap into that positivity. And we use that because we can always make more. We can make so much more positivity. Whereas negativity, at some point you just truly hit rock bottom. So
Very
just
true.
don't even start down that dark tunnel. And as soon as you see yourself starting down that dark tunnel, take that moment to stop and pause and ask yourself, okay, so here I am. But what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen? And what's likely to happen? And then sort of face your fear of why you're starting down this dark tunnel, and then use that to pivot back and make a choice, because we all have the power to choose, and we can choose the light. And in the darkest hour, my husband died of terminal cancer. When he got that diagnosis, that was a dark, dark hour. And believe me, I threw a 2-week pity party.
I think you're allowed to do that.
But then I got to that point and I said, okay, well, this is going to be the reality. We all do die. I know that he's going to die, but I can choose how the next few years, his original prognosis was actually 6 months to a year. He lived for 3 years. And I have to say, the University of Washington here in Seattle was amazing. That's why he lived as long as he did. But with that said, I mean, we made a choice. We can choose to make every day count. And we did. And so I look back on that as my greatest accomplishment to date in my life. Amazing. Of seeing him through that dark journey, and then all the incredible things that we were able to do, even if it was just the final months of his life. We watched all the different Jane Austen movies, whether it was, there's like 3 different versions of BBC over the years. There's theatrical releases going back in time. And it was so fun. I mean, it was like this little thing that we did together.
What better way to spend the time there? Personally, I can't think of a better way. But for you, Lynn, that is completely inspiring how you handled that situation and got through it and pushed on as well. Do you think for you it is just a natural thing to do? Is it just always been this way for you to be able to look at situations, go, look, I guess how I can phrase it is like you're obviously a solution-based person. You go, right, how can we make this better? How can we fix this? How can we get through this? Like you said, how can we find the light in the darkness? Has that always been the way? Is that something that you've naturally just had?
Yeah, I think I'm a go for it type of person. So back when I was like just in early college, and my brother was in high school, and he was this great snow skier, and I sort of knew how to snow ski. Okay. And I would sometimes go out with him, and he would take me to these unbelievable runs, and we'd be at the top of the hill, and I'd be looking down going, holy moly, I'm scared. I mean, I'm not sure I can do this, but I always went for it. I went, okay, it's sort of like that Kim Possible moment. I can do anything. I can do this. And I would take that leap of faith. And so, that's one of those things that there's something about, just, my DNA, the way my parents raised me, was that, I could do anything, and that I had the power to make that decision, to make that choice. And that is the most important thing that I think the gift that my parents gave me was that ability to see that I could choose, which direction I went in.
Yeah, and it's obviously a gift that you've taken full advantage of and ran with. For you, when you're doing your thing and you're helping these businesses and improving leadership and getting better connections with their customers and consumers, do you ever I guess the best question is why do you think people get it so wrong? Because there's so many people out there that try really hard. I'm not going to put anyone down. They try really hard, but they don't really get it, or they can't quite get the connection right.
Yeah, there's 2 things. The first one is they don't tap into their customer why. That you absolutely have to understand from your customer's perspective, what they want, need, or lack, how that's going to help them or serve them so that they can And what's that so they can?
Mm.
Right? We have to answer that. And then how does that tie into their motivations and emotions? Because that's really what we're looking for. It's to give them the so they can. And if you don't start with that customer why and go, we have a, like I said, we have an exercise that we go through to nail that. And then during the sales process and the sales journey, that, that why does change. Our customers' needs evolve and, morph. That's just the way it is. And you can use the same technique if you're asking for a raise, if you want to present to your boss as to why we need to follow a certain path for an initiative. This is that same tool. You can use it with your kids to get to motivate them to do something. So this is the core tool. The second most important thing is to follow up. Because if you don't follow up and you don't do it effectively where you're giving value, and I do not mean the stupid, lame, oh, I'm just calling to check in. I wanted to follow up on the status.
The three
No,
things I'm
I mean,
touching base.
for us, when I followed up that third time, rather than send the lame email, wanted to see how everything, I just went back to track through the emails, and I went, oh, I can go ahead and schedule it right here. I'll see if I can do that. Bam, I schedule it. So my email that came back to you was, hey, I've gone ahead and scheduled this. So I did the heavy lifting. I didn't have to say, hey, should we reschedule? No, I took the bull by the horns. I took care of it. And here we are, right?
Exactly.
Follow up is so important. And that's the people who are champions and who really have incredible performance in any aspect of their job and their life. It's because they follow up.
Do you think people in that follow-up saga then, do you think people get bored of it? Because I've heard so many different theories about the follow-up. You've got to follow up 7 times, 17 times, 107 times, 3 times. After twice, you should basically announce them that they're no longer part of your life. What is the real solution to the follow-up? Because obviously there's not a hard and fast rule, I'm guessing.
No, absolutely not. And it definitely depends on where you're at with in the situation. So in sales, if you have initiated contact with them and you've built the value, you please don't do the thing on LinkedIn where you immediately start pitching them. I mean, right there, you just squandered that opportunity. It's gone.
I think I've had about 3 of those today.
Yeah. So you've invested the time because you can create and build relationships through LinkedIn right now when we're all virtual with cold calling. You can also do the same thing with people. That's how I got all my business way back in the day, as I cold called, but with that said, that's one process. If you never get a response, I really go with the baker's dozen. At that point, you just sort of move them into something where you can ping them every 6 months or every 12 months. Because when you're being ghosted, there's so many different reasons for that. There is so much noise around us. But if you don't come to it with value and authenticity, you're never going to break through the noise. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you have gotten a response. So let's say, back in the day, I would meet lots of people at events. And so of course, first thing, ping them on LinkedIn. It'd be great to get connected. And then during the event, I always try to find a way that I can give something of value to them. So during the conversation, they might, recently I was having a conversation with someone and they're trying to figure out which way, what platform they should use for their podcast or for their yada, yada. And so I told them, some of the things that we did, and I went ahead and I did screen captures. I sent them an email and I sent them some links. And I said, well, this is furthering our conversation. This was the information I provided and the things that I promised I would send over your way. So I do what I say I'm going to do. And so that builds that trust and credibility. And then, in that case, then your follow-up is, I still tend to follow the baker dozen rule, but I don't ever end the relationship. I just simply move it to another stage. So then, of course, if you're in that stage with a customer and you've had the presentation, they were really interested, but it seems like it just went cold. That's another way of follow-up. And I think at the end of the day, it's that tenacity But doing it in a way that you never poison the well and you never squander the opportunity,
Yeah.
because sometimes something may just not be right now. It's
Hmm.
just not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that it won't happen 6 months from now, a year from now. So the door needs to be left open. And as I always say, uh, I have this thing that every destination is a doorway to another. So even if you can't get to that yes, that's just for right now.
Yeah.
And of course, you're always going to prioritize the people who are, really interacting with you and you're moving forward. But you do still need a process that's not robotized. Please, no robo people, but where you ping and you touch base and you give value. Every 6 months or every year, depending, and sometimes it could be even a monthly thing.
Hmm.
They're on your newsletter, but even a business newsletter. But there's something that you're still doing to, keep that connection alive.
Yeah. You mentioned the noise, and I think that's something that a lot of people both struggle with in terms of being heard, but also struggle with in terms of filtering on both sides of that story, or both sides of that fence. In recent years, and especially recent months, like you said, everything is now online. I feel like that noise has got probably a little bit louder, and I'm sure some of that noise is from a place of desperation in terms of sales versus the place which you should be, like you said, in that value giving and that nurturing sequence. How, in terms of a business, when they want to be heard, when they want to be seen, and actually they've got incredible value to give and incredible services, how do they get heard over that noise? Is it in that follow up like we just spoke about, or is there other methods that they should be using?
Yeah, well, of course, breaking the ice, and breaking through that ice is important. But there's a whole series about sales strategy. And like I said, going through, really identifying that customer why, the market segments where your product or service fits. And then for each one of those, and then the roles of the people you'd be working with, then going through and doing the customer worksheets so that you really can think like the customer. And then from there, you can prioritize. There's a method that I use to prioritize, your leads, right? And then you can also, of course, always create a method for people to come in, so there's always a symbiotic relationship between sales and marketing. But from a sales perspective, it's to always capitalize on every single lead, whether they're incoming, they're warm inbound leads, and obviously creating a way that you can generate that is very important. But and there's a lot of novel things that we can do that are truly unique and ways that we can pull that together. And what we have to do is anything that you're doing right now, that you can pivot and adapt it so that you can use it in a virtual world.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've done, I mean, for many, many years, is I use Play-Doh, which you'll think, really, what? And this is when it's an icebreaker. So when I was physically going out and making presentations and sales, so in my previous corporate career, and I had a group of people that I didn't know or only knew a few people, the stakeholders who brought me in, I brought a box of Play-Doh. And then I'd pass it around at the beginning of the meeting so everybody could take, the Play-Doh, that they could choose their color, right? First of all, I
I
got
mean,
their
already
hands
it
off their
sounds
phones.
incredibly fun.
Yeah, they got their hands off their phones. Most people have happy memories of Play-Doh as a child. There's that smell and the tactile feel.
Mm.
And then I'd start to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And they can use a little part of it. They can take a piece and they can have a nugget. They can take the whole thing and reframe and reform, what they're doing right now. And so, we can break it apart into its parts to analyze it, but that's what we were going to be doing. And, you use that analogy, but they're playing with the Play-Doh and I'm asking them to stretch it and pull it. Now for our sales program, we still use that in session number 2. And we ship the Play-Doh to our clients so that every individual gets their Play-Doh in a beautiful box, with a belly band. So it's like, I'm not Apple, but I try to create an experience when they open it with a handwritten note.
Amazing.
And, so it's like, that's in stage 2. So all of a sudden they're already learning, okay, this is unique. This is different. I'm sharing it now, but this is a really effective tool that you can use. And we're live, we're virtual. I could have shipped you some Play-Doh.
I know, if I
But
knew I could have got
yeah, in
PlayDoh,
fact, I've got some right here. I've got my Play-Doh right
I
here.
would
I
have
keep it
said,
on my
look, ship
desk.
me some.
Yeah. But it's like one of those things that makes it's a great way that I had executives in my corporate career who would come after me, because I'd be presenting to, the C-suite, et cetera, for our solutions. And they'd say, when you first handed, I thought this was the stupidest thing. I have to apologize. I have to tell you, this was amazing.
Yeah.
I use that word a lot, but everyone was engaged. We had more conversation out of this meeting than I've seen in months. And this was great. Is it okay if I use this? And I said, yeah, absolutely. It's like everybody can go out and get their Play-Doh.
Yeah. But what I love about that is typically when people in corporate especially, but when we talk about training, a lot of training is forced upon the employees. So they're told to go to the meeting room for Tuesday for an all-day training idea. So as a trainer, like I've done as a trainer that's walked into a room, that people haven't volunteered to be in this room. So
Yep.
you having a piece of Play-Doh, which is such a simple idea but so powerful as well, really just allows all those barriers for you as the trainer to be broken down, and that person who is going to be trained to really just buy into you, because like you said, they're putting their phones down, they're thinking a different way, they're being transported back to all these amazing memories. Well, we hope, like we said, we hope they're amazing. And I do not know anyone that doesn't reminisce when they smell Play-Doh.
Yeah, I
It has
know.
such a distinctive smell.
Yeah. So for everybody out there, take that nugget. But it's a really, of course, I think maybe Play-Doh should send me a boost to sales, right?
You
But
need to contact their PR team.
But yeah, it's an amazing, but that's the thing, you have to come up with different novel ways. And not just once at the beginning, but you need to do that at several points in the presentation. And this is just not asking, does anybody have any questions? Are we ready to move on to the next thing? Because no, I mean, you got to get them involved. And you don't want to create a situation where you put them on the spot, but there's a lot of ways that you can gamify things, or hand out a quick questionnaire where they have to check things off, or you can, especially, obviously, I had multiple assistants at one point in my corporate career. So I would have somebody at these, I was flying all over the country to do, these things, and I have somebody with me. And so they would take care of the poll. Literally would be polling people. And then, so I wasn't having to try to do that. We'd get the results, and then we'd start announcing the results, and we'd also use them at certain stages after that. But we'd and then we could also do things where we gamify things.
Yeah.
So that, and it could all kinds of different things. And once again, tie it in with your product or service.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think gamifying is, like I said, such a powerful way to learn. And really great that it's obviously worked so well for you and in your business. In terms of your business now, what's next for you guys? What are you off to do? I'm sure that 2020 has given you a lot of room for thought in terms of what you want to achieve. So what's come out of it, and what's next for you?
Yeah, I stumble over this. Wow, what a year we've had. My goodness. And it has certainly been, I call it the COVID wrap. So resilience, agility, and problem solving. And the clients that I've worked with in the past, I always have that open door where they can give me a call. I've had multiple people call and just like, okay, I don't know what to do. Our whole business model, it's just like, it's collapsing around me. What do we do? And it's like, okay, so how do we adapt? Because your customers still need your product or service, but they're going to need it delivered in a different way. They may need changes. I mean, every situation is different, but it's that brainstorming and that, once again, bringing that positivity. We can do this, so let's go back to think like a customer. What's going on for them right now? What's our starting point? Now, how can we continue to serve them? What do we need to do to make that happen?
Yeah. I love
so, and I think in this new year, I truly love what I do.
It's so obvious.
Technology, how to clone me, because we're
It's
reaching that
possible. The
point that
technology's out
we
there.
have the clients clamoring to work with us.
It is there. The technology is in the world to make that happen.
Yeah.
Whether we do it or not, it's a little bit of a risky one to do.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
sure it's
it's our
effective.
service is so personalized in that white glove
Mm,
that and that's what the whole thing is, that this is not some canned program that you watch online. I don't believe that. First of all, the numbers are so huge about the people who don't finish those, or
yeah,
even if it's required, they've got it running in the background while they're doing other work.
yeah.
They're really not tuned in.
They're not
So your
engaged.
retention is garbage, which is why you get garbage results.
Mm,
And so our program is the complete opposite. Our customers see an uptick in their performance and their sales within the first 2 sessions. And then of course, the other thing is it's sustainable. It just doesn't stop at the end of the program.
that's
And then if they have certain problem areas, we'll work strategically with them on those areas for their what they need. Anyway,
fantastic.
so it's I think that's going to be my big thing, is that scaling.
Mm. Yeah, exactly, and that's often one of the hardest things to do in business, because especially if it's so white glove, so personable. So it's going to be really interesting to watch you scale, because again, I have zero doubt that you will. And it's that side of the business growth that's always interests me. Lynn, I would love to sort of round up this interview, this questionnaire, with a final question, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, but I know you can handle it. I know you can. If we could finally sort of the final question is, if you could give three bits of advice for anyone that wants to, let's say anyone that wants to connect with their customer at a deeper level right now with what's going on in the world, what would be your three must do bits of advice?
So, wow, it definitely depends on where you're at within the sales journey. But if this is a customer that you already have, it's, have a virtual, coffee or lunch, and just talk with them. Don't ask them for anything. Just say you want to check and see how they're doing. You want to just and make that conversation about them, about what's going on in their life. When you have a customer, you've learned a bunch of things about them, like their daughters are in college. Did they, are they actually on campus? What's happening? That they know that their spouse or their significant other was having challenges with their work environment changing with this, whatever it is, so that you can just really let them talk and let them share. And but at the same time, make sure you don't, when you're doing that, keep it on a high enough level that you don't have them oversharing really uh, uh, personal items, because that can actually backfire, where they then become uncomfortable
Mm,
at a future date. So, but you can absolutely handle that with grace and aplomb, and make them they just feel better, right? Another thing to do is to send, a package. So this is with a client that you already have. And so this can be like the winter survival kit, and we have some beautiful teas, and it could have some of the little, maybe that they have an espresso in their office. So you could order the pumpkin spice, that's just become available, something else, or some kind of exotic, maybe the Kona, which I think
mm.
is no longer available. Obviously, I drink espresso, but make it something that's different. One of the things that I've done is I am a crafter. I make fabric masks. I started doing that in March, as soon as I got the pattern from the New York Times, and I've been making holiday masks now. And so then I've been sending them to my clients, so I know how many people are on their sales team, and then like some support staff, etc. And then every weekend I'm trying to make at least 20 of these masks. I'm not like that little girl in Pennsylvania, but
Yeah.
and I will package these up and send them out. And it's something that's really thoughtful, and of course I include in the note that, hey, make sure you watch these all first, and, all these different things. But that's something that I've done, and it's just sort of a thoughtful thing, and it's sort of fun too because
Mm,
I make these reversible masks with these great holiday patterns. And if they don't want to use them, they can gift them, right? Gift them
exactly.
to someone else or set them out at the office. But doing something that's special. As we approach here in the U.S. the Thanksgiving holidays, one thing that I recommend is pulling together recipes like from the sales team, personal family recipes, getting them, sorry, my head, these little things just, putting them in, getting them printed, putting them in a tin, and then once again, sending those out as a gift from our family to yours,
Mm,
you know, and it doesn't have to be business,
yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
just like you care about them as people.
Yeah.
For years I did that, and I mean, I still do, and I have customers who send me a picture of something they made, or they'll even post it on a social media and they're tagging me.
Love that.
I'm not the only social media I really participate in is LinkedIn, but you know, when I
It,
occasionally go onto Facebook and say, oh, 110 notifications.
but what I love about that is it's just simple, right? It's human to human connection. And I think that's what people forget. I think people forget that sales, connection, growth, leadership, all of these effectively buzzwords that have been created over the years of corporates and business styles all boils down to human connection.
Yep.
And if 2020 has taught anyone anything, it should definitely be that we need to connect more with others on a more personal level. And that is just going to help thrive everything else. And I think your advice there in terms of that, be personal, figure out what your clients need and want and desire. It doesn't have to be in business. It is exactly spot on for the current climate.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it really is. It's about another human being
Exactly. Lynn,
and showing
listen.
that you care and respect them.
Exactly. Lynn, thank you so much for your time. And my final question, I always have two final questions, but my final question is, how can people find out more about you? How can people connect with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Lynn Whitbeck. I'm LinkedIn, whatever, Lynn Whitbeck. You can find me on our websites, either at petite2queen.com, the digit two in the middle, or futureforwardsales.com. And on both those pages, and you go to the About Us page, you'll find a link so you can go right to my LinkedIn. But that's the best way to start a conversation with me. If you are interested in our program on our Future Forward sales site, there is the ability to schedule a chat with me to talk about it. But this is this is not, this is an intensive program that also respects the time that your sales team has an ongoing commitment to do their job. But the results are phenomenal.
Amazing. Lynn, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time. Like I said at the beginning, I'm glad we managed to do this. You have a lot of wisdom to give, and you certainly gave some of it here. So thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.